Here we are with Overwatch This. I'm Jeff from the Overwatch team. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Overwatch This. I'm Matt, I'm joined by Ben.
Hello.
And it's episode 50.
Hooray!
Woo!
Woo!
There we go, we made it, Ben.
We did it. We got to the half centenary.
Yeah, the big 5-0. I mean, it means sod all in terms of...
yeah, like 52 I'll be more excited for, because it will mean we've done a year's worth of episodes.
Well, technically we've done more than a year's
Yeah,
worth,
because
right?
we've skipped like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And there's been like extras and specials, and I'm sure everybody's very fascinated in just how many episodes there's been.
The history of Overwatch This. Yeah, let's scrap history, let's focus on what's coming next, because we know about the Halloween event, right?
Hooray!
Hey! To carry on the tradition that we started 2 weeks ago, let's do a Ben check.
Let's do a Ben check.
2 weeks ago, you did a forecast of what was going to happen in the world of Overwatch, and you said that this week, this very week, first week of October, that we would get told about the Halloween event.
What happened yesterday, everybody? We got told about the Halloween event. It was scheduled for next week, which is what I also said. I thought there wouldn't be a lot else going on this week, which is sort of accurate. There hasn't been a ton going on, but the Blizzcon schedule was also announced. We're going to talk about that a little later in the show. But yeah, so they announced the Halloween event. It's coming back. It'll start on October 10th. That means it will probably run until around October 31st. I would assume this one might run for 4 weeks rather than the usual 3.
Yeah, it can't not be on Halloween, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't remember how long the last one actually ran for. It's possible that one went for 4 weeks as well, because that one started on October 11th. So yeah, I assume they will want to run it through Halloween, and if it goes for 4 weeks, that takes it up to the week after BlizzCon, when presumably we'll then get the BlizzCon patch deployed to PTR, and the current patch that's on PTR will probably have gone live during that period as well.
It's all making sense.
So yeah, it's all making sense, and you know, we'll continue to check exactly how correct I've been when it comes to these predictions. However, we did see a little something in the teaser.
Yeah. So we got it's a very, very short teaser. It was on like Twitter and stuff
it's
like
about
that.
10 seconds long. And half it's a logo.
Yes, but we did get to see 2 of the new skins, which obviously is the big thing that we want out of Halloween. Is crazy new spooky skins. So we got a Reaper and we got a McCree.
Yes,
I'm a big fan of that Reaper one.
Yeah, the Reaper one looks pretty cool. So I'm not sure. We think it might just be the Pumpkin Reaper one from last year without the pumpkin on his head.
Right.
'Cause he isn't wearing a hood and he's not wearing a hat. He's got like weird fangs.
It's not quite got the sort of capey element to it.
No.
It looks more like a coat, and I'm coming on to this because of the way that McCree's dressed as well. There's almost like a Bloodborne, like
there is a Bloodborne
Victorian
feel.
Gothic element to all of this.
Yes. Yeah, the Reaper one does look pretty cool. They've clearly like redesigned his faceplate a little bit. I do wonder if that'll be a legendary. It looks a little simple. And in fact, so does the McCree one. So the McCree one is a sort of hunter type deal, and I think the reason people are calling that is because it looks like a hunter from Bloodborne. Like he's got like kind of very wooden ornate pistol. It's a little bit Van Helsing. There's no crossbow or anything, because I think that'll probably be a little too much of a change to like the visual style of him. But yeah, you know, it is very kind of vampire hunter, kind of, I don't know, mid-centuries, Eastern, West, like Central European kind of deal, like, you know, hunting vampires and that sort of thing. And I expect maybe some of that will also tie into whatever we get that either replaces or kind of builds on top of Junkenstein's Revenge.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping for that kind of PvE again, but maybe a sort of like Count Dracula's kind of hordes and stuff like that. Yeah.
So interestingly, the Hunter McCree skin was teased in a comic a year ago. It was also a piece of fan art someone created slightly after the game came out, so like a little bit more than a year ago. Someone made this really cool Hunter McCree, you know, very, very Bloodborne styled thing, and then it was shown in the comic that showed a bunch of the Halloween skins that were eventually added to the game, like Witch Mercy was in there, I think one of Torbjorn's was in there, and a bunch of others basically. And so it's very clearly that skin. Now, interestingly, it also ties into a 4chan rumor that came out about like a bit under a week ago, I think. There was a post on 4chan, it ended up getting posted on the Overwatch subreddit. Somebody, as usual, claiming that they were, you know, a member of the development team, or that they worked within, you know, Blizzard, and they could take cheeky snapshots of when stuff was going to happen. However, everything in that leak that has been like revealed and has turned out to be true is stuff that could very easily be guessed. For example, I could have guessed these dates, and indeed I did a week ago. Everybody saw that. I don't work for Blizzard. I don't have any inside information as much as I would love to. It's also very easy to guess that this McCree skin would be happening if you just went back and looked at that comic and said, well, they'll probably do these. But, if that person turns out to be completely correct, then we'll revisit it. They listed off a bunch of skins that would be happening, and if it turns out all those skins are true, we'll find out by next week. Then, we can look at that that leak as more legitimate and go into some of the other things they said. They talked about new heroes. They talked about like another origin story on the way for Symmetra. That would probably be the next animated short and that sort of thing. However, in general, I don't like to talk about 4chan leaks. Like either they turn out to be true and you're kind of spoiling yourself on what's going to happen and all the nice announcements. And Blizzard have a lot of skill in putting all of that together and getting people hyped up and that sort of thing. Or they turn out to be false and you make a fool of yourself. So just don't believe them. However, we'll keep an eye on that one. And if it turns out that they guessed all of the skins right, then we'll take another look at it and. Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Right, so Halloween obviously is the big thing for October, yes. But we're all focused on November, right? Because that is the most wonderful time of the year, Ben.
The most wonderful time of the year, in my opinion. Not only is BlizzCon very soon, but we now have the schedule, and I always enjoy when the schedule comes out because it lets me kind of spend 2 hours thinking about something and trying to dig deep into what is essentially a series of lines of text. So yeah, we got the schedule yesterday. There isn't a ton of Overwatch stuff on there. There is a fair number of Overwatch panels, but we're not expecting it to be kind of a big blowout year for Overwatch. That was sort of expected last year because of how long all the Sombra stuff had gone on for, and because it was the first Overwatch is out now BlizzCon. And obviously, Overwatch was the focus before that because that was the year where they showed off Genji, D.Va, and Mei, and it was a big deal that this game existed. And then the year before that was when they actually announced it. So yeah, I'm not expecting Overwatch to be central this year. There's very clearly a WoW expansion to be announced. For those of you interested in other Blizzard games, pretty clear we're going to get a Hearthstone expansion, some new Heroes of the Storm stuff as well, and stuff tying into all of that. No Diablo stuff, but other than that, I'd expect something new for pretty much all of their games. However, there will be announcements during the opening ceremony. That's when they do that stuff. That is streamed online for free. You don't have to buy the virtual ticket or anything to get the opening ceremony. It's just an hour of basically saying, hey, here's all the stuff we're going to talk about for the next 2 days if you want to buy the virtual ticket. Also in the virtual ticket, there'll be skins and stuff. They haven't actually shown exactly what you get this year. I think there was was it Bastion last year?
Yeah.
And then the year before, I don't remember who it was the year before, but there you go. Oh, in fact, no, it won't have been anything the year before because there wasn't skins in the game at the time. So yeah, there'll be another skin of some sort. Maybe they'll give the BlizzCon Bastion again. Maybe there'll be something else. Might be for Orisa, for example. That'd be a good way of doing it. There's nothing in the panel descriptions that really confirm anything. So yeah, sorry. There's the opening ceremony that anyone can watch for free, and then there's the What's Next panel. The What's Next panel is what they call their panels that are about whatever they are announcing at the show. There is no specific description for the panel that really says, yes, they're going to say this or whatever. Last year, for their What's Next panel, they specifically mentioned like heroes and maps and modes and that sort of thing. This year, it's a little more generic. That doesn't mean anything, but I would have thought if they were definitely going to announce a hero, they would say in there that, we're talking about new heroes. Just because that gets people excited and it means that more people buy the virtual ticket. And obviously, they do want to sell more virtual tickets because it is something that is pure profit. Like, obviously it's not. They need to sell a certain number of virtual tickets to make the fact that they're making it worth it. But once they have passed that threshold, it is pure profit and it doesn't cost them any more to produce based on the number of people that have bought them. So, if they were definitely going to announce new heroes, I would have thought they maybe would have mentioned it there. I'm personally still on the no new hero train. I think particularly what Jeff Kaplan said the other week that was basically Hero 26 isn't 26? 26? 26? 27? 27. The next hero isn't coming as soon as you think.
Right.
It was a fairly definite indication that it wasn't going to be announced at BlizzCon, but maybe people thought it was coming a little bit sooner. And also, if they're not announcing that, I do wonder what they're going to fill that time with.
Sure. So the other thing that we know is that the voice actors are there, right? They're doing a panel, and we know that they're quite a funny bunch. They've all had sort of like some nice interactions, but can we really expect anything from that?
No, and in fact, the fact that they're doing that maybe sort of indicates that maybe there would be a new hero because it'd be a really good place to introduce a new voice actor. But it could also be other stuff. Like there is lots of room within Overwatch to develop new things that we haven't had yet. Announcer packs, for example. some people are getting a little bit bored of Athena after a year and a half, you know, that sort of thing. And also, yeah, like that group of people is quite... They've actually managed to kind of build a community around just themselves. And so it is interesting to see that. But I wouldn't expect that to have any major announcements. And I expect once kind of day one is over and the What's Next panel has happened, that's where we'll kind of know everything they're going to say that's of note. Except on day 2, they've actually added an Overwatch League panel. Now, this wasn't there when the schedule went live last night. When I was checking it this morning, it had been added. So I actually noticed there was a hole in the schedule where there's usually a panel. Basically, just before the closing ceremony, there's usually something on. This time there was a big gap in there last night. Came on this morning, there's now an Overwatch League panel there saying that they will talk about the inaugural season. This is pretty much their last chance to actually announce stuff about it. We still don't know exactly when the earnings call is going to be, which is the other place that we would expect to hear a little bit about it. I expect that maybe the reason it wasn't on there last night was they were still confirming whether they were going to have to talk about that stuff beforehand or not, in anticipation of an earnings call. So I think the earnings call will be after BlizzCon, which I'm sure is what they'd always prefer for it to be anyway. And then they can talk about all that stuff going forward, and they can actually announce it properly during the show itself to do with Overwatch League and all the rest of the other stuff that's going on. There's very clearly a focus on esports this time, Overwatch esports. The Overwatch World Cup is in the arena. That's normally where the StarCraft is. It's normally where they do kind of the big finals for their big esports. This time the World Cup is there. They definitely really want to get people watching Overwatch esports. Obviously, they've invested a lot of money in it. I hope it works, as we discussed in the past. There's been a couple of Overwatch League announcements over the past week as well. They gave the team for San Francisco, like who's going to be on that team. They haven't given it a name yet. And they also named the Chinese team, which is now the Shanghai Dragons. Right. They have their own Mei skin. I don't know if that's actually going to come to the game or not. Okay. It's like got a different logo on it, but otherwise it's basically like the red Christmas one, with obviously not the hat. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Interestingly, there is one other panel that I think could kind of show some big stuff for Overwatch. Right,
so this is the Blizzard social panel, right?
Yes,
and why do you think this is kind of important?
So there's a few different reasons. One of them is that it's sort of in a prime spot. So that the earlier you are on the Friday, the more important your panel is, basically. So the first panel on the Friday after the opening ceremony is the WoW panel. That's because we're getting a new expansion. Everyone basically knows that. And the fact that that panel is first basically confirms that we're getting a new expansion. After that is the Hearthstone panel, but on the kind of, there's basically like an A stage and a B stage, and some of this has sort of changed for this year, but I'm still kind of operating under the assumption that this is how they're thinking about it when they're organising this stuff. And on the B stage, right after the WoW panel, is this Blizzard social panel. It's an hour long. That's longer than the Hearthstone panel. It's longer than the Heroes of the Storm panel is going to be. I think the only things it's the same length as are the Overwatch one and the WoW one. Sure. So that indicates they've got a lot to say. We also know that there is stuff coming to the Blizzard client. We wrote about this the other day, actually. I think it was yesterday or the day before, where it's basically been data mined that there is a pair offline mode coming and that there are groups coming. We think the groups kind of operate a little like Discord channels and that sort of thing. So there's chat and there's group chat, and there's voice chat, and there's a group like text chat, and it'll go between games and it'll work quite nicely that way. But the fact that there's so much time here would suggest that there is kind of larger things on the plate for this. I really thought a lot of that content, particularly the Appear Offline and the group stuff, was going to come before Destiny 2. Right. Appear Offline is just something that's been requested for ages and people really want it. It's kind of a basic feature that Battle.net launched without, and it really should have had since like 2012 or whatever. However, the groups thing is really central to the way Destiny 2 works. I mean, you know more about this than I do. Absolutely. But the whole game is groups, right?
Yeah, entirely. You're talking fire teams or six-man raid groups and stuff like that. So yeah, it is important.
And it's about playing with that same group over and over and over again in a similar way to how WoW is. But WoW obviously has the guild system, whereas if you can have that group system be Battle.net wide, then that's more useful. But what's interesting is it could be about all sorts of different systems. BNet is like pretty good now. Like it's certainly like when Battle.net 2.0 launched, it wasn't particularly brilliant. But there will be a lot of pressure on them to keep upgrading it because they're getting stuff like Destiny 2 on there. And also like the fact that it's just called social changes and it's about the future of Battle.net. It could mean just about anything. They could be talking about stuff like getting more attention onto the comics, getting that stuff into the client and into the launcher. They could be completely changing what Battle.net looks like. Maybe they're turning it into Battle.net 3.0, for example, and adding like a lot of new features. So if you play a lot of Blizzard games or if you play a lot of Overwatch, I think this panel's going to be very important to keep an eye on. And even if you're keeping half an eye on the Hearthstone expansion panel as well, I definitely make sure that you catch probably the first 15 minutes of that social panel just to see exactly what they're talking about. And again, if it's an announcement as big as, hey, we're completely redesigning Battle.net, that'll probably also get a mention in the opening ceremony anyway.
So BlizzCon, obviously not huge for Overwatch in the way that we would traditionally expect, but still probably going to launch a few surprises on us.
Yeah, and Overwatch is a much more distributed game. Like, the biggest possible announcement for Overwatch is a new hero. And they can do that whenever they like, and they have to do that whenever they like. They can't just do one hero a year, certainly not at the moment, maybe once they get a little further down the line. So yeah, I never expect BlizzCon to, like, unless they announce an Overwatch 2 or something, or like a single-player campaign, and I'm not expecting that sort of stuff this time around either. You know, yeah, it will never be the huge blowout that you get like in a WoW expansion or a new game announcement. But yeah, I would say that even compared to that normal stuff, it might be a little lower tier than we're used to seeing.
But hopefully you are still looking forward to it. Ben certainly is. I know I am. It's going to be good. But hopefully you enjoyed the episodes. You can give us a like if you did. There's also a subscribe button. You can get one of these every Wednesday, plus a plethora of other PC Games N footage. But until next time, good luck and have fun.